This week, I'm super excited to introduce a topic that I think is super important because it's going to allow you to get good at just about any skill. I'm going to talk to you about what it takes to master a new skill and get good at something that you've never ever done before. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons that I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to help you live your very best life. And today we're going to talk about the idea of practice and how consistent, deliberate practice makes perfect. So there's this old phrase that says practice makes perfect, which actually is not true. Because the idea of practice makes perfect implies that the more I do something, the better I get at it, which isn't necessarily true. Because sometimes you will actually, in your practice, repeat a bad habit, and then you are basically ingraining the bad habit so that you continue to replicate it and replicate it and replicate it. My baseball coach when I was growing up used to say perfect practice makes perfect, because you have to practice the techniques of something in order to do it well. And this past week, we were actually talking about how you get good at something you've never done before. I was hosting my conference down in Atlanta. Well, it was actually an online conference, but I went to Atlanta to host it, to spend some time with my team. And there's a guy on my team named Cecil Walker, who's just a brilliant dude. And he believes that anyone can get good at anything with enough practice. We were debating, is that true? And the word that we were getting stuck on is good. When I think back, I thought about that as I was flying home. I think that anybody can get good at just about anything. And I'll give you an example. In 2020, I really didn't leave my house too much because of COVID. And there wasn't any flights, and I wasn't seeing clients face to face, so I wasn't going into an office. Gyms were shut down, restaurants were shut down. I really didn't leave my house for any reason whatsoever. I mean, I guess running to the gas station and grocery store and that sort of thing, but I wasn't leaving my house too much. And by about November, I was getting a little stir crazy. And it's funny to think about that now. It was only a couple of years ago, but it's true. I was getting a little stir crazy. So I decided I was going to try to pick up a new hobby. And for some strange reason, I went to Bass Pro Shop, which is this outdoor store. I had only been there once before in my entire life, and I decided for some weird reason that I would go today on that particular day. And I walked in, I just kind of walked to the back of the store and found myself in the archery section. And I bought a compound bow, a target, and some arrows. We did some work to fit the bow to my body, like my arm length and that sort of thing. And I went home and immediately took a shot. I actually have a video, and if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see it. There's a video of me taking a shot, and I missed the target totally by 6 feet. I mean, I was way off. And I decided I was going to take 100 shots every day. I'm literally going to take 100 shots every day. And I set up a little shooting target in my backyard, and I took 100 shots every single day. Without fail, without question, I took 100 shots. And I was watching videos. I went to an archery range so someone could show me the posture to stand. And I mean, I really took it seriously. And before too long, I could basically hit any target I wanted from about 20 yards. And then I backed up to 30 yards, and I took 100 shots every day. And it was amazing to watch the growth over that period of time. It was remarkable to watch your skill develop just from applying perfect practice consistently. And I think that's the key, right? And I'll talk about my field of psychotherapy. What a lot of psychotherapists do is they learn a skill at a conference or in an intensive training, and they treat it like, okay, now I have this skill in my pocket. And as long as it's in my pocket, I don't have to do anything. But you have to. You have to consistently practice the skills associated with anything if you want to gain mastery. And I think that should always be the goal, is to gain mastery. And it was really cool to watch myself just get so much better over a period of time. I now feel like I can hit just about any target 30, 40 yards and in. But when I first started, I mean, I'd never shot a bow before. It wasn't like I did this as a child. I literally brand new skill. And just by applying consistent practice where I'm working on the fundamentals so I can try to repeat perfect practice, here I am now, and I can hit just about anything 40 yards and in. And it's amazing. It really is amazing to take on new skills. So if you're out there and you're thinking about a new skill that you want to develop, I want you to be consistent and apply yourself so that you can develop the skill and be able to grow within it. And it's going to take you being committed to consistency and fundamentals, but that's how you grow with any skill. This past week at my conference, my business partner, Anna, her new skill was Rubik's Cube, and it took her forever to be able to put the Rubik's Cube together, watched a few YouTube videos and practice. And then eventually she was able to do it, and she's now done it 7 times. So pick a new skill. Could be something, significant, something small, and just commit yourself to 30 days of trying that new skill and then watch what happens. Hey, thank you so much for being here today. Please do me a super huge favor and share this podcast on your social media platforms or with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. Happy Monday. Hope you have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. When I was an undergrad, there was an athlete who played on the basketball team at my university whose consistency, attention to detail, practice, and hard work inspired me. And that was over 20 years ago, and that inspiration sticks with me to this day. I'm going to talk to you exactly about what it was about him that inspired me, how it inspired me, and why I think it's an important lesson for all of you to hear. I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. And of course, I'm Elliott Connie. I want to talk to you today about a friend of mine, someone that I met 20 plus years ago when I was an undergrad, and how this person really, really touched my life. And this person's name is Lanny Knight. So growing up, I was an athlete. I played football, baseball, and basketball, and I was always super duper athletic and in shape and all those things. Now, 45 years old, and I'm business and, degrees and all those things. I'm now out of shape. But back then I was in shape, and I was in shape all the time. And I stopped playing sports. I got to the end of my athletic career, and I still had another year of my academics to do, and I stopped playing sports, and I gained a ton of weight. And I remember thinking I wanted to be one of those people that was just kind of naturally in shape, and I was thinking about being in shape as like some people are in shape and some people are not, kind of a way. Because I was in shape for so long and I was always so active, I never really thought about how I got into shape. I was just in shape because of the way I was living my life. And then I got a job traveling with the basketball team at my university. I was helping them with stats and running practice and that sort of thing, just like a little student worker for the basketball team. And the best player on the team was a guy named Lanny Knight. And Lanny Knight, if he walked into a gym, you wouldn't assume that guy was a super talented basketball player. And he was physically in shape, but you just wouldn't look at him and think that's the guy that's like the best basketball player on any team. And in fact, he was an All-American. And when you look at him, you just wouldn't assume that that's the case. So in the year that I worked with the team, I traveled with the basketball team the entire season. And I noticed that Lanny Knight is not naturally in shape. He's not naturally a great athlete. He's not naturally any of those things. He was just consistent, and he worked at it. He took 500 jump shots every single day outside of practice. He was really, really, at this time I'm 20 years old. So he was the first person I ever watched that was really careful about what he put into his body in terms of the food that he ate, the liquids that he drank, just the way he went about his nutrition. He was really careful about his sleep. He would make decisions to make sure that he was getting a proper amount of sleep. He was really careful about his extracurricular activities. He wouldn't go to places where there was lots of smoking. He wouldn't hang out with people that were not in line with his goals. He exercised outside of practice. He lifted weights. And I realized Lanny's not naturally an All-American basketball player, and he's not naturally in shape. He works at it, and he works at it every single day. It's like his mission and his purpose, and he has drive. He was one of the most driven people I ever saw. And I remember thinking, that's what it takes to be successful. Shortly after that, I applied drive to my life, and my grades got better. And now that I wasn't playing sports anymore, I had to go to the gym on my own instead of being told to go by a coach. And I got into shape again. And all of these things were inspired by Lanny Knight. And I really think I carry that with me to this day, because I'm very driven in my professional life. I'm very driven in the work that I do. And I remember like the first person I ever saw function like that was Lanny Knight. So I want you to take away from this, like, if you want to accomplish anything, you have to apply yourself to it. You have to be dedicated. You have to be consistent. You have to be repetitive. You have to pay attention to detail, and you have to work at it. That's the biggest lesson I got from Lanny Knight. And I hope that's the lesson you would get from hearing about Lanny. So I want you to ask yourself, what could you do to improve your mindset, your focus, your drive, your motivation in accomplishing something meaningful in your life? Thank you so much for being here today. If you wouldn't mind, please do me a huge favor and share this podcast on your social media platforms, or with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, any place you listen to your podcast. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Recently, somebody asked me a big question. And what they asked me was, how did I become the global leader in the field of solution-focused brief therapy? One of the most prominent forms of psychotherapy done all around the world by clinicians and professionals everywhere. And how did I do that being an African American, being younger? I mean, I'm 45 years old. I wouldn't refer to myself as young, but like younger in the field. How did I grow to prominence so quickly? I was listening to this question, and it made me think about habits and practices and things that make you better and grow. And that's what today's podcast is going to be about. I'm Elliott Connie, and I want to welcome you back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very, very best life. Now, I want to go back to the beginning of my career to talk about how I grew in terms of skill and how all of that took place. I want to go back to the very, very beginning of my career because, to be honest with you, none of this was ever the goal or the dream. All I wanted was to be the best clinician I could possibly be. When I was in graduate school, I used to talk to my professors and I would talk to my peers. I just wanted to be the best and strongest clinician that I personally could possibly be. And I started doing things because I noticed most of what we study comes out of a textbook, but how do you actually apply the skills and grow and get better at what it is that we were doing? And I thought back to my athletic training, and I thought one of the things that we did in baseball to get better at hitting baseballs is we would observe ourselves doing drills with our coaches. That was just a common thing. We'd get videotaped in practice, and we would observe ourselves doing the actual skill. So here I am now trying to be a psychotherapist, and I knew that I'm learning the theory in the books, but I actually wanted to hone in on the practical and pragmatic skills that make me a good psychotherapist. So I did an unusual thing. Like around that time, technology was advancing. And the first thing that happened is there was a little mini voice recorder I used to carry with me. And I would say to my clients, I'm going to record this session, and with your permission, I'd like to record this session. I won't let anybody listen to it. I just want to record it so I can hear myself back and get better doing therapy. And all these clients would say yes, and that's what I did. I recorded myself on audio talking to clients, and I would listen to them back to try to see what questions were impactful and what habits I had linguistically and what things I needed to correct and what things I needed to do better. And then shortly thereafter, the iPhone came out and it had a camera on it, and I would prop my iPhone up on my desk and I would say to my clients, can I videotape my sessions? And every single day, I would sit at the end of my day doing my progress notes and watch one of the sessions that I recorded that day. And if I didn't record one that day, I would just watch one over and over again until I recorded it. And it increased my skill level. I became so much more aware of what I was doing in session and how I was doing it. And I got better and better and better as I was practicing. You know, one of the best examples of good habits is the Beatles, who played at a bar in Liverpool, England, for like a year and a half, 3 shows a day, every day. And then all of a sudden they got invited to America, and it was like the British invasion. And the people in the Beatles would say, everybody thought we were an overnight success, but it actually, by the time we got our opportunity, we were very prepared because we've been working at it. And I would say the same thing happened to me. By the time I got my opportunity, I got an opportunity to publish a book, and then right after that to do a lecture in England at a major conference. And the book was a success, and the lecture was a success. And people thought, like, this is an overnight success. Here's this guy talking about solution-focused brief therapy in a little bit of a different way. But the truth is, I've been working for about 5 years up until that point when that success happened. It was not an overnight success. It was the consequence of years of practice and dedication to mastering the skill. So by the time I ended up on a stage, or by the time I ended up with an opportunity to write a book, I was prepared and I was ready. And I think that's a cool thing about having ritualistic habits and having real practice as a part of your life and as a part of any skill you're trying to grow in. It just makes you better really, really quickly and helps you be prepared. When you hone in on the details, when you hone in on what it's going to take to make you successful, it is an absolute game changer. And that's really the lesson I want you to learn. Like, I don't say, like, I'm the leader of the field. I don't say that to brag or boast. I say that to inspire you, because it wasn't by accident that this happened. It wasn't by coincidence that this happened. It was a consequence of attention to detail, really methodical practice, and being really, really consistent in doing those things. So I want you to think of a skill that you would like to noticeably improve on. I want you to think, what have you done to get as good as you are thus far? And what could you do to get that much better? Thank you so much for being here today. If you wouldn't mind doing me a huge favor and share this podcast with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And if you're really cool, share it on your social media platforms. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. You can do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow. This week, we've been talking about the importance of practice and consistency and sticking to the process. But that brings up an important question that's kind of like the elephant in the room, which is, how do I know that I should be sticking to it? Like, what if I'm not getting immediate results? What if I'm not getting the results that I want? How do I know that I should be sticking to the task, and for how long? That's what we're going to be talking about today on this podcast. I am your host, Elliott Connie, and I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. And I want to talk to you a little bit about, how long do I keep going? How long do I keep pushing? How long do I keep thriving? And how do I know when I should give up? And how do I know when I should continue? Now, this sounds like a big question. It sounds like something that's like really like a big moment. Like, how do I know when I should keep going? How do I know? What should I quit? And here is the really simple way that you should know. And that is, if you love it. You should be doing the process because you love the process, not the outcome. I think too many of us get engaged in an activity because we want the outcome. So thus, if we don't get the outcome, we feel frustrated. But you need to be doing the process simply because you love the process. You need to be moving towards the goal simply because you love the grind. You know, when I was growing up playing sports and playing athletics, the games were actually a lot less fun to me than practice. And that's how I got so good at playing sports, particularly baseball, because I loved the process. I loved the idea of going to practice and fielding 200 ground balls, which is how you practice playing infield as a young man. Like, I would go to practice and my coach would hit me 200 ground balls to practice. And then I would practice running the bases, and I would take batting practice where I would swing the bat like literally dozens of times. And I experienced the games as somewhat of a disappointment because during the game, I might get 3 ground balls, or I might get to go to bat 3 times. But at practice, I get to work, and I loved it. Like, you have to love the dirt. You have to love the grind. You have to love the process. And I think too often, people get involved in something because they want the ultimate aim, not because they love the day-to-day grind. And you have to really love it. So how do you know if you should keep going? If you love it, man, and if you love it, keep going. If the process ignites you and inspires you and invigorates you, keep going. There's a rapper. Well, most of you now probably know this person as an actor, but he started off as a rapper by the name of Ludacris. And I remember when I was in college, everybody was like, have you heard this new rapper Ludacris? And it just seemed like he came out of nowhere. And all of a sudden, he was on every radio station, on every single song. I mean, he was literally everywhere. And in an interview, somebody asked him, what was it like being an overnight success? And he said, I wasn't an overnight success. I'd been working on my rap career for 10 years. It felt like I was pushing on a wall that wouldn't move. It just wouldn't move. It just wouldn't move. And then all of a sudden, I started pushing on the wall and it started moving like crazy. I asked him, like, wasn't it frustrating? And he said, no, I loved it. I loved going to the studio, pursuing this dream, and writing song after song after song after song until ultimately one of those songs changed my life. And I would say that's how you know. When you love it, when it inspires your soul, when it fills you up, when you're just so on fire and excited to be doing that task at that time, that's how you know you should keep going. It doesn't matter when you achieve the goal. And quite frankly, it doesn't even matter if you achieve the goal. Just doing the task from a loving place is ultimately the goal. So if you're pursuing something, like maybe you're going after a degree, a different job, a career, a promotion, maybe you want to be rich and famous like an actor or a movie star or a rapper, the goal is to just love what you're doing and keep going, because that'll give you what you need to persevere through the difficult times. And if you don't love it, it'll let you know that maybe this isn't something you should be pursuing at all. So I want to invite you to think of what are some things in your life that you are working towards, that you got to find a way to love just the process of working towards. Just think about, what are you working towards and what could you do to make sure you're just loving the process as you work towards that thing. Thank you so much for being here today. Please do me a huge favor and share this podcast on your social media platforms. I want to reach as many people as possible, and I can only do that with your help. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Today I'm going to talk about something that I often do not talk about. It's going to sound like I'm bragging, it's going to sound like I'm boasting, it's going to sound like I'm showing off, but I'm not. I'm going to be saying what I'm saying today to inspire you, to set an example, and letting you know what happens when you practice and practice and practice and practice and show consistency and discipline and then eventually achieve your outcome. I'm Elliott Connie. And I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. And today I got a story to tell. When I became a psychotherapist, I did it because I truly wanted to make a difference in people's lives. Like, that's actually what motivated me. I want to help people have better lives and live better lives. In order to do that, I had to reach people. My first attempt to reach people was to get a job at an agency, which I loved. But I realized the only people I could serve were the people who came to that agency. So I eventually went off and opened my private practice and realized that the only people I could serve when I was in private practice were the people who could drive to my office, which were a larger sample size than the people who could come to the agency, but not, world changing in the way that I wanted to be. I eventually wrote books because I knew I could reach more people by writing books. And then I eventually started becoming a lecturer and I could travel around the world delivering this message. But I wanted to reach more and more people, which meant I had to figure out how to get my message shared online through things like webinars, online lectures, podcasting, all of the things. And I sucked at it. I mean, really, really sucked at it. And I remember I didn't want to be distracted by anything else. Like, I wanted to really focus in getting my message out into the world. I wanted to run a company where that's what we did. And I was so terrible at it. Like, I really couldn't. Like, I wasn't generating enough revenue to pay myself, let alone pay a staff. I mean, it was really, really hard. But I made a commitment to myself that I'm going to keep working at this until I figured it out. And I bought books. I bought online courses. I accessed people who I thought had been good at it. But most importantly, I decided I'm going to keep doing online lectures until I could get good at it. And I would make an offer to people to sign up for my online lectures. And I would get 10 people to sign up, 12 people to sign up. And before I knew it, I was getting like 1,000 people to sign up. And it was like, holy cow, like, what am I doing that's allowing me to do this? And the answer to that was I was consistently putting myself out into the world in this way and getting feedback and then adjusting to the feedback I was getting and then continuing to grow. And I was getting better and better and better. But I still had the issue of revenue. So I started creating online courses, but I had no idea how to sell them. I had no idea how to get people to sign up for them. Because in order for me to sustain myself and be able to get large number of people to sign up for things and get the message of hope and solution-focused brief therapy and change out in the world, I had to get people to sign up for my courses so I could have enough revenue to like hire staff and teams and that sort of thing. And I'll never forget, I now had to practice making offers, and I would have like 10 people buy my course, which would be a few $100, but you can't run a company on a few $100. And then one day I was in Toronto to do some teaching, and I had a webinar to do, and I brought my laptop with me, of course, and I'm sitting at my computer. I was going to make an offer for a course for people to pay $197 to get one of my courses, and 120 something people signed up. Like, it literally went from like 10 or 12 to 120 something people. And that was the first time I was like, holy cow, 120 something people, let me do the math. That's like $20,000 plus dollars. And that was the first time I realized I was making a revenue where I could like run a company. And I started hiring people. I now have a company. We have about 10 employees, including my staff and someone who does my social media stuff. And Adam helps me run the company, and Anna is our CEO. And, we have this great team that works together to do this. Now, why am I telling you this? Because from the beginning of when it's like, I want to figure out how to share my message online, to when I figured out like I'm making progress and generating type of revenue where I can run a sustainable company, was about 3 years. 3 years of doing monthly, if not weekly, online courses, 3 years of practicing this skill and practicing this skill and practicing this skill. And imagine if I had given up. Like, the life and company I currently lead and have wouldn't exist if I had given up. Like, sometimes you have to just keep working at it and just keep working at it, just keep working on it. And when you do that, the reward is profound. So I'm sharing this with you because I want you to have profound rewards. I want you to achieve your biggest aims. Now, mine was to run a company where I could share hope, love, happiness, and joy with the world. In order to do that, I knew I needed people to be on my team that had different skills than I had. And maybe your aim is something else. Who knows what it is? But I share this to inspire you, to let you know that Elliott is not special. If I can do it, you can do it. And if you can hear my voice, I'm cheering for you, and I want you to do it. So I want to remind you, you have the abilities to improve at any given skill, just like I did at sharing a message online. It may take some time, may take some heartache, but when you start the process, I just want you to make the commitment that you will never give up. And I promise you, if you do that, you will eventually achieve your wildest dreams. Hey, thank you for being here today. Please keep helping me to share this message on your social media platforms. My podcast is growing and it's going all over the world, and I thank you so much for that. So please keep sharing it. And also subscribe. You can do that on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, Anchor, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. And I can't wait to see you on Monday.